Hello, it's Mark here from Yokel Bear Reads. This video started out as a conversation and then a challenge. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine about a particular author of which I am really not a fan, but he is a fan. And talking about this particular author, my friend set a challenge. Which was to read this author's latest book with an open mind, not going into it with any preconceptions or as a few preconceptions as I possibly can, reading the book for what it was and then giving it an honest review. And that book is Origin by Dan Brown. Now, I'm not really a Dan Brown fan. Now, this friend of mine is, and I'm not going to name this friend who set this challenge because I don't know whether Dan Brown fans are born or whether society makes them that way, but I think it's important that we respect their lifestyle choice, and I feel that it would be wrong to out somebody without their permission as a Dan Brown fan. So I'm going to respect their confidentiality. But here was a challenge. The challenge was to read it and basically go into it with an open mind and see whether I could find positives in it. Now, the reason that I'm not a big fan of Dan Brown is quite simply, I've read the Da Vinci Code. The Da Vinci Code was... I liked the idea of it. Everyone loves a good conspiracy, don't they? But the execution was terrible. And I kind of started reading Angels and Demons and couldn't get past about the first 3 chapters. And it's given me this view of Dan Brown. So I thought I'd go into this, as per the challenge, with an open mind. So this is 4 books on, isn't it? 4 books on from the Da Vinci Code. So I thought, let's go in and see how Dan has developed as a writer. So, it was around chapter 2 that I got this feeling that something wasn't right. You know, in movies where people move into an old spooky house and they think it's fine. They think they found a really nice kind of, it's cheap and cheerful, but moving into this new house. But then they start to realise there's something not right about it. Yeah, I got the same around chapter 2 with this book. And spoiler, it was the writing. It was the prose. It's terrible. I just can't find the words of, and I don't think Dan could either in some places. I just think it's really terribly written. And there's one bit in particular that I want to point out. This is the cliffhanger or the final sentences of chapter 36. Let me open the book here. Robert, Amber whispered, just remember the wise words of Disney's Princess Elsa. Langdon turned. I'm sorry. Amber smiled softly. Let it go. I mean, just like, it's pretty representative actually. Also as well, reading this, there was a sense of familiarity because this is essentially the Da Vinci Code written again, just different setting, different city, different characters, well, apart from Robert Langdon. It starts out with our hero, Robert Langdon, who's an academic and seems quite a personable chap. But if I was him, I'd be wondering about how do I keep getting dragged into these things. It starts off with he's put in danger. Something's happened and he's in danger and he has to go on the run. But he always goes on the run. And this, again, is no change from the previous plots. He goes and goes on the run with a smart, professional woman. I think Dan's got a type, to be honest with you. And there's a conspiracy. There's some kind of secret, ancient secret. And There's been clues left all over the place by people going through the centuries. So you end up gadding round all these really nice cities like, in this case, Bilbao and Madrid and Barcelona. In previous books, it's been Rome or Paris or London. And there's always art involved. There's always these clues in works of art. This time, kind of Gaudi and Jomero. Or there's always kind of these secret clues. Like, there was a big industry of artists who were just like, let's put these secret clues in. But the problem is, if this is the same as the Da Vinci Code, which is essentially it's essentially the same book, then eventually Dan's going to run out of art. And he's going to run out of cities. How soon is it until he writes a book around a conspiracy that involves running around Skegness and decoding those paintings with dogs playing pool? Because eventually he's going to run out. So it's, again, that was that familiarity. It was like, I've read this before because I've read the Da Vinci Code. And, I thought, well, my reading, I'd like to experience new things, not the same thing over and over again. There were upsides to it, though. The one thing I will say, there's quite a lot of nerdy science in here, which I quite like. I quite like the nerdy elements of it. But the problem is, it's always explained through these pages and pages of exposition dialogue. Normally, as well, not in every case, but let's say 90% of the time, it's the men doing the explaining. Pages and pages of men explaining things. It's just like... And, I mean, the exposition in the dialogue got so much that at one point I thought Robert Langdon would actually come back and do a whole exposition thing about him going to the toilet, because he was explaining everything. Everyone else was explaining everything. No one in here seems to listen. They're all just basically explaining everything to everybody else. And as for the conspiracy, the kind of secret they're trying to find, it was quite... I'm not going to give any spoilers. It was quite intriguing, but it was strung out for right to the end of the book. And whilst it was intriguing, it wasn't the most brilliantly profound or shocking secret. Actually, once you learn it, you think, oh yeah, it just makes sense. So it was a bit of a letdown once the kind of denouement of what it was they were searching for actually came as a bit of a letdown. Also, as well, towards the end of the book, and again, not giving any spoilers, but there is a revelation about a relationship between two people that I found borderline offensive, to be honest with you, but you have to read it. Now, you can't get away from the fact that these things sell like hotcakes. I mean, good old Dan, I'm sat here worrying about, paying the bills, and he's probably sat in a mansion somewhere with a private jet and all kinds of things that I don't have, because he's come up with a really winning formula. And I guess I kind of understand why, if that formula works for him, he would just repeat it over and over again, just like the plots. So I don't dislike the fact that Dan Brown is doing this. It's just not really for me. I mean, who is this book for? Well, I don't know. I mean, I've got a friend who, every time we go out to eat or anything, would always eat the same thing. Or would always, has always gone on the same place on holiday for quite a few years. And I think people who like real routine, who don't want to kind of experience anything new, but are quite happy with what they've got. If you're a Dan Brown fan, you're probably going to love this, because it is classic Dan Brown from what I can see. Is it for me? No, because it's let down by the writing. The writing's just terrible. But if you like a bit of a plot and you like it kind of moving along a bit, yeah, it kind of goes along at quite a click, this book. But it's just awfully written. So it's not for me, but that's as honest as a review I can get. It's basically the Da Vinci Code with a different cover in a different city. So no, Origin, not for me, not my kind of thing. Prefer my writing with a bit, the prose a little bit better. But, you know, hats off to Dan. He's found a winning formula. Good luck to him. But I will not be reading any more Dan Brown because I've done my time this weekend reading this. I never get that time back. Anyway, there you go. That's Origin. Bye.